Hello everyone, welcome to Travel, Explore, Celebrate Life with Veena World. I'm your host Neil and Sunila's also there with me. Today we are going to go to Himachal Pradesh, and when you go to Shimla, you visit Mall Road, you have the momos, you visit Shimla Church, and you also visit a lot of things that you can really do in Shimla, but not many people know that one of the prettiest buildings in India, one of the prettiest monuments in India is very close to Mall Road, which is called the Vice Regal Lodge, or which was formerly called the Vice Regal Lodge and is now called Rashtrapati Niwas. Sunila, hello and welcome again. Now, today we are going to talk about something that has historical importance, is super pretty, is an educational institution now, and a whole lot more. So, how would you really introduce the Vice Regal Lodge or Rashtrapati Niwas to our listeners?
Hi, Neil, and hi, everybody. Neil, I think really good point that you've made here. I think there is so much to see and do in India that we are really spoiled for that. There is so much of history, so much of culture, so much of natural beauty. And very often we think of Himachal Pradesh as the place where we go for the mountains, for the stunning, skiing in winters, for the rivers, for the mountains. And very, very often we don't think of it as a monument heavy place like Rajasthan, for example. But I think Rashtrapati Niwas is really the jewel of Himachal Pradesh in that sense. So I think it is a monument you just should not miss when you visit Shimla, and situated just 2 to 3 kilometers away from the main Shimla. It's really easy to get to. I mean, I remember when we went also, you hardly feel, and the road itself is so pretty. Going there is so pretty, and once you reach there, it is a feast for the eyes. So I would say that if you had to see, a list of monuments in India, this is right at the top, and definitely we should not miss it when we visit Shimla.
So, do you remember that walk we did after
Mhm.
we did the tour of the Vice Regal Lodge, which was we had a tea at the Oberoi Cecil
Yeah.
and then went to Mall Road all the way up until Shimla Church. And if the weather is nice, I think it's a super beautiful walk. But let's come back to this. So, located at Observatory Hill in Shimla, which happens to be the second highest point in Shimla,
Mhm.
the first one being Jaku Hill or Jaku Hill as they call it. This was formerly the residence of the British Viceroy, right?
That's
And
right.
you were telling me about how architecturally it is different, has very interesting things. The rooms are quite interesting. What was that about?
So, Neil, this Vice Regal Lodge is a historical, I would say, monument right now. It was built in 1880. They started 1888. They completed, and at that time in 1820s, the style of architecture that was really popular was called as Jacobean. So, which is like a mix of Elizabethan architecture with Jacobean. So, you have Queen Elizabeth and King James, and you mix these two architectural styles, and you have a Jacobean style of architecture, which was really popular in the UK in 1820s. And this is a mix of English Renaissance, so you will still see the tall Gothic columns and all of that, and also a little bit of the influence of the castles that you see in Scotland. So it's really, when you reach there, you feel, oh, I've seen this. And now, especially if you go there, it'll really seem very familiar, because for those who follow Downton Abbey, the very popular series, Highclere Castle, which serves as the home for Downton Abbey, was built on similar lines. So it's really quite similar to that and looks stunning. So even from the outside, it is beautiful, and the inside is equally stunning. So it's like built of a gray stone, and there was a separate entrance that was added later. So the first viceroy who built it was Lord Dufferin, and then later on Lord Curzon added a few more places. So I think the stunning stone building that you see first, that wows you as soon as you go there.
So, the of course, it is also said that Lord Dufferin's wife,
Mhm.
and this is like it could be false, and people say that yeah, I see story here, this is a story, and that's why we keep telling everyone.
Mhm.
Lord Dufferin's wife was like put the first switch,
Ah.
light switch in India was at this Vice Regal Lodge. And people, every guide who tells you this will tell you that
Ah.
this may not be true, but we've heard this. So that is quite interesting. And you rightly said that as the viceroys were living there, everyone kept doing something or the other with which like architecturally made the Vice Regal Lodge much prettier, much more beautiful, and all of that. One point I'd like to add over here is it was actually designed by the British architect Henry Irwin.
That's
And if
right.
you remember the podcast we did on the Mysore Palace, Henry Irwin
Yes.
was also the person who did uh, the Mysore Palace, and his works have been in that Indo-Saracenic style of architecture, right? In terms of the cost of the project, also it was quite interesting because back then the project cost 38 lakh rupees, and
Mm.
just the annual cost of upkeeping the entire property was 1.5 lakh rupees in the 1880s. So if you were to adjust that for inflation, it would just be way, way, way,
Mind-boggling.
way too much.
Yeah.
So like it's quite interesting. Now, when we go to the Vice Regal Lodge, we can do the tour, right? And
Yeah.
there are like it houses some of the most ancient photographs and like
Mm.
articles from during the British time. But have Indian presidents also lived at this lodge? Because some of them have, some of them haven't. But I've also read that this is now called the summer house of the president of India.
Yes, Neil. So, when the after independence, when this was handed over, it was handed over to the President of India. And that is why the name Rashtrapati Nilayam or Rashtrapati Nivas. And the second President of India, Dr. S. Radhakrishnan, who was also a professor and really valued education. He said, I don't really have much use for this summer residence or summer house. And he didn't really want to live there. And I think he did an amazing thing by handing it over to the Ministry of Education, who then set up the Indian Institute of Advanced Study here. So, today people are doing research out here. There are fellows, there are professors who are coming in and giving talks. And basically, they do a lot of studies on humanities, social sciences, natural and life sciences. And like you said, there is so much of information and wealth inside when you go, that I think it's the ideal place to study. Like, just imagine, in the lawns, the gardens itself are so beautiful. And we'll talk of what you can actually see inside, but it's amazing, right? Rashtrapati Nivas, a president says, I have no use for it, and then he hands it over and becomes the Indian Institute of Advanced Studies. So we're really thankful to him for that, I think.
So to add to that point, the Himachal Pradesh High Court and also the Himachal Pradesh University back then were allowed to use some parts of the building, but
Mm.
essentially it is the Indian Institute of Advanced Study that takes care of this, takes like ensures that its upkeep is there and all that. One thing I was slightly disappointed by is that they allow you to do the tour,
Mm.
but your tour is only a few rooms, right?
Yeah.
And it's more so on the ground floor. So from the outside, it seems great, but sometimes like you can't go to the third floor, which
Mm.
might have some of the more interesting rooms and all of that. So what did you think of the tour?
I think it was a good introduction, but like you said, you want to see more and you can't take any photos inside. So you come back thinking, I wish I could have spent longer. And then you have the guide, of course, and he takes you and they tell you how, because there's a lot of woodwork inside. So I think they're just trying to protect it. And the wood is still original. The original Burma teak, like teak was brought from Burma, and also the local cedarwood and walnut. I mean, Himachal Pradesh has no dearth of, all these trees. So all of that was used. So I think they had Belgian glass, and there's a story that apparently, like you said, one room, it was, they really lived the high life, the viceroys, and they actually had a room just to store suitcases. So like you said, a lot of it, even when you do the tour from inside, you have to kind of imagine a lot you can actually see. And they say they found there was a sprawling indoor tennis court. So just think of it like, oh, I live here and I have an indoor tennis court and a wine cellar and so many other things. But yeah, it would be nice to be able to actually go ahead and see all of that. But yeah, the photographs and the ancient photos are amazing too, and when you link it to what really happened there, it is a great connect.
It was also known to have the latest technology of the then Victorian era because, like,
Mm.
the plumbing system, the piping system back then, ensured that hot and cold water was like provided after having gathered like the rainwater, and it was
Mm.
stored under the lawns in front
Yeah.
of the house. So all of these things were quite interesting. And like, once you go there, it's just this feeling of like, I don't know how to put it, but I just felt nice going there. And my friend who lives in Shimla was like, often they say that it's one of the best places to visit in Shimla because it tells you a lot about how Shimla is like ingrained in the history of India, right? Because let's come to that part also where the Vice Regal Lodge played a huge role in what India is today, or what led to India and Pakistan, right? So what do you have on that?
So, Neil, it was a place of the Shimla conference, and I think it's really an important place because this was like a watershed moment for India, right? I mean, this was when in 1945, when the British were ready to hand over the reins to India, and it would no longer be under their rule, and we were to get independence. And then you have Mahatma Gandhi. I mean, the names, it gives me goosebumps even to think of it, that all those people actually met there. And then you had the Congress and the Muslim League meeting there. And then you have Lord Wavell, who was the viceroy then, who came in with his plan. And the plan was presented for a separate India. And it's amazing that, the plans and the talks all went there, but unfortunately, they could not agree. And then they decided that India would actually be partitioned. And this historic moment, this historic decision was taken here. So I think it's really quite important.
We were talking about how the insides of the palace, there are many ancient articles and photographs. A large theme of these articles and photographs is like what happened between 1940 and 1947, right? Because you see Jinnah, you see Nehru,
Yeah.
you see Mahatma Gandhi coming to this lodge multiple times, that there are multiple conferences that were happening. And it's interesting to think, because once you're in a room, the room, they tell you that in this room was where this was decided. And to think of how like that was the last chance of having a unified India, at the Vice Regal Lodge assigns that historical moment. And you have all of these photographs where, you know, Nehru in his typical Nehru jacket with sunglasses of the
Yeah.
1940s or 1950s was quite interesting. And I just felt like everyone who visits Shimla should definitely visit this place, because it teaches you a lot of what happened here. What was the Shimla Commission? What did Lord Wavell want? What it was, and who actually approved of certain things and did not approve of certain things, because that eventually led to India and Pakistan being partitioned the way it was. And then, had that not happened, we could have seen a unified India. But again, you will never know, right? So that is something interesting. Towards, like, as like to discuss, or the end, to end the episode, what do you think of that small bookshop that was there? Also, it had a lot of the books on in the history of India, right?
Yeah, it was quite interesting. And I think, it was really interesting. And it's nice because usually all the monuments will have a gift shop at the end, and you end up buying souvenirs, which probably you'll do nothing about. But to have a bookshop there, I think that is the perfect shop to have. And it was really, I really liked it. Probably spend some more time out there. But Neil, I just want to add that, when you go there, I think people should also take the time to be on the gardens and spend some time in the gardens, because the gardens are just amazing. And it gives you a great view, one, of the Vice Regal Lodge, and then two, since you're on the hill and you're at the top, it also gives you a good view, if the weather's clear, of the mountain peaks. And there is a map there which shows you which peak is which one. And there's also a little sundial. So I think it was really quite interesting. I mean, you already mentioned the rainwater harvesting. So it's just to put all of that together with the history and spend some time basking in the sun in the lawns is amazing out there. So definitely go do the tour inside, but also take some time to enjoy the Vice Regal Lodge from the lawns.
Perfect. Well, now that we've done this episode, I'm remembering our trip to Wildflower Hall, which was
Yeah,
super nice, right? And that jacuzzi outside and the great weather. I think it was in August that we did it,
that's right.
like August of
Yeah.
2019, if I'm not wrong. But yeah, guys, that was the Vice Regal Lodge. Sunila, where are you going next? Like, we did Bucket List 2022 an episode or two ago. So
That's
what's your next
right.
trip like?
I think I've already forgotten what the bucket list was, but I'm hoping to go to Lucknow soon. I mean, I'm sure that was on my list. Yes, it was.
For the
And I
Tunde
hope I
kebab.
can, yes, for the Tunde kebab and some shopping. So let's
Nice.
see.
I'm
Hopefully.
busy
Yeah.
planning my honeymoon out here. I don't know where to go, but we were just thinking about it, and we were like, okay, let's go to a place that we've never been to before, and let's go to a place where we may not eventually go before. So we are trying to find out these super
I
offbeat
think then we should
places.
really look at something far, far away.
Yeah, which
And
is why
just
Hawaii's on the top of that list right now. But let's see, because flights are slowly starting and people are slowly traveling. And as we speak today, there are approximately 600 people traveling with Veena World, also all across India. So listeners, viewers, pack your bags. We often say at Veena World, chalo bag bharo nikal pado. So thank you so much for listening in. Sunila, next week, another interesting place.
Next one.
Probably, I think the next on our list is the Charminar in Hyderabad. So let's gear up for that. Thank you, listeners. We'll see you from Hyderabad next week on Travel Explore Celebrate Life. Goodbye.